Hey, what's happening? It's Sharon D. Johnson. How are you? I'm here with my sister, woohoo, Dawn Johnson Jones, the fabulous teacher, literacy coach, assistant principal, queen of all she surveys.
Thank
And
you.
we are
Thank
going to,
you.
we are
Put my
going
crown back
to,
on.
that's right. We are going to jailbreak the Black University and jailbreak the Black classroom. So we're going to talk about two projects for different educational levels that were books that got adapted for film,
Mhm.
and just chop it up about what's good about that, what's bad about that. There's this, when you hear people in academia talk about films that were based on books, they're all, they complain and they, don't like it. I shouldn't say they, I'm one of them.
Right.
Um, but I always like to include more of the positive.
Mhm.
Um, so, um, and it's funny you were mentioning Monster, and I just happened to Google. I didn't know it was made into a movie that was at Sundance and had all these,
Right.
people involved. So, um, t- first, just tell us a little about you, and then get into Monster. So, what's your teaching trajectory been like?
Wow, guys. It's been quite a journey. It's been a 21 year journey. Wow. Um,
You
and
only look
I
22.
had I started when I was 10. um, I've been, super fortunate to work with people that are innovative, knowledgeable, willing to share, willing to groom, um, and very conscious, very culturally conscious. So I think starting out that way um, really helped me to know that I could be and do whatever I wanted to as an educator. And not just whatever I wanted to, like, frivolously, but what I needed to for those to whom I had been blessed to teach. So I, again, like you said in the beginning, I've been a literacy teacher for a long time. Round about the fifth or sixth year that I was teaching in East New York, Brooklyn, um, a new principal came on board and insisted that I come out of the classroom and share my, bag of tricks, I guess, with the rest of the building. And that was Everett Hughes, who also teaches some leadership classes at Columbia's Teachers College. And he was very influential in helping me to recognize my talent. And I remember one teacher in particular. The first year I started working in 292, which is in East New York. Susan Arouse. She's a she was a literacy teacher there at the time. Very young, and her classroom was magic. It felt like you were in a cafe, a spoken word cafe every day. Like, the way she exactly the way she engaged students and prepared them, for the necessary evils of, standardized testing and things like that. It was so genius. It was so authentic and rich. And as soon as I sat in her classroom, and I was like, okay, that's me. Like, this is who I want to be. This is who I want to become. Um, and that's the kind of impact I want to have on children.
Okay.
And but again, long story short, so I was in East New York for 10 years, and then I came to District 29 in Queens um, in
We go
19.
to Queens.
Yeah, I was going to say Queens. McDowell, shout out, shout out.
We do this with Coming to America all the time. It's the
Yes,
Johnson thing. Yeah.
please. So yeah, so when I got to District 29, in Queens, at IS 59, junior high school, IS 59, your alma
My
mater.
alma mater. Woo.
Yeah. I was hired as an 8th grade English teacher, because that was the position that was available. And, I came on board, and they didn't have a very, strict curriculum that they were using. It was pretty much, bring what you know, and, get some newspaper articles, teach that. So, needless to say, um, it was right up my alley, but that can be frustrating to a lot of teachers who are used to direction, and structure given to them as opposed to creating it themselves. But as I said, I had 10 years experience prior to that, where I was given all of that opportunity, and I was challenged with doing that, with writing curriculum, coming up with units of study, and everything was culturally relevant then, before it was popular to say it, that it was.
Right.
Um,
Right.
so 4 years ago, I became the assistant principal at PSIS 270, and we serve pre-K through 8th grade in that building.
That's a
And
lot of people.
yeah, I know, it's a lot of babies.
And it's the Gordon Park School. Is that what
Yes,
it
it
is?
is the
Okay.
Gordon Park
Okay.
School, which again, I just think that all of these things work together cosmically. I came to District 29 essentially for my children, who were still young, and just the back and forth in school, and raising them, which I wanted to do as well as I taught other people's children. So, you make those decisions, you make those, I was going to say sacrifices, but it's not really a sacrifice. It's what you do. Um, so, in all of this experience of being a coach, being a teacher, leader, and teaching, all the while teaching, never leaving the classroom or moving your finger off the pulse of what young people are thinking and how they feel. That's probably the most important part of this job.
Okay.
You have to understand who you serve, and you have to be a good listener. So, being an assistant principal at 270 was kind of a natural progression. I mean, I felt like I've been doing that all this time, in any of the roles that I've had in any of the past schools. So, we're jumping into year 5. That went quickly.
Woo!
I graduated 2 children during that
Woo!
time. My 2. Whoop whoop.
Yes.
So, it's been a journey, and
Okay.
I still think that the biggest challenge, no matter what role I am in or how I serve other teachers or train other teachers, it is this idea of authenticity.
Okay.
And what are we teaching? How are we teaching it? Why are we teaching it? So those are still big questions.
So when did you start using Monster? Is it some sort of a required?
It wasn't at the time. It wasn't a
Okay.
required text
Okay.
when I first started using it in
Okay.
it was probably around 2001 or so,
Okay.
or somewhere around there. I feel like I've been teaching it forever, like since it came out.
Right.
So,
Right. So
um,
can you just explain what is the book, who is it by, and all that stuff, all that good stuff?
So Walter Dean Myers is the author of Monster. He's the author of a number of books, young adult literature, and we began using it as part of a scholastic curriculum, and I was taken by the book. It's written in the form of a screenplay, and which I loved, and also journal entries, which at the time I had my children writing every day. It's one of the ways to really get them to start thinking and then speaking productively. So yeah.
So that's interesting that it uses 2 different sort of forms of writing. And so as students are reading it, they're like, learning these two different, journaling and screenwriting. That's pretty
Yes.
cool. I guess because the main character like an aspiring.
So the main character, Steve Harmon, is an aspiring filmmaker.
Okay.
And he attends Stuyvesant High School. And I thought all of that was interesting to introduce to children, especially in East New York. And it's like, well,
Right.
Stuyvesant, where's that? What's that?
Right.
So, and the idea that this is a young Black male who fits all of the phenotype of, who they're used to. And then you unearth another side of him. Like he's also a scholar. So he's a homeboy and a scholar,
Right.
So it's like, oh,
so this whole thing about it's not cool to be smart, like I know when I was in junior high school, that was a big thing with the boys, and the girls were just chugging away, getting those grades. And the boys are like, I don't want to, it's not cool. I'm like, okay, bye.
Right. And I also think that it's traditionally not cool for boys to be interested in something other than sports or, knocking each other over or something. Like they have to be rough and tumble. Right. So it was really nice to be able to introduce a character to both the girls and the boys that was in tune to detail, because that's who Steve was. As a filmmaker, he had to pay a great deal of attention to detail. And I think that's one of the things that plays out in both the movie and the book. What you remember and what Steve remembers and doesn't remember about the incident. And it's like, but you're a filmmaker. You have a penchant for detail. So how do you not, it's very interesting. It's very interesting. So, but the kids, they like the intensity of the book as well. I think the idea that you never really know, like,
did
Steve?
He do it? Did he not?
And Steve, are you telling the truth right now? Or
he's making something up.
Like, right. Is this the screenplay and the telling of detail, or is this your journal and the telling of emotion? And
right.
So yeah, it was interesting.
Very interesting.
Very interesting.
So I forget the year, 2000, I want to say 2012 or 13, that it was at the Sundance Film Festival. John Legend was one of the producers. And, he has been involved in education efforts. So, I understand when people feel, oh, this is a great piece of literature, you're going to mess it up, turning it into a film. But at the same time, I understand the desire to bring things to life.
Yes.
Right? In a different way, because when you read a book, you're bringing it to life in one way. But I mean, like the root of the word poem, the poem's not supposed to stay on the page. The poem is supposed to be performed or verbalized or embodied in some way. So you say like your students really like the book. I don't know if they saw the movie, or how do you feel the film compares to the book as a teaching tool, I guess?
Okay, so first of all, the students did not see the movie.
Right. Okay. Right.
But I think they all imagined it as a movie.
Okay.
They could all imagine what it would look like or sound like if it were a movie, and who they would cast and so on and so forth. It's hard not to do that when you're reading a screenplay. The boy is telling you, I'm writing a movie about this experience. So, we did talk about that a lot. I think that the film does a good job at raising awareness of some of the themes presented just by writing the book, whether Walter Dean Myers intended for that to be the theme or not. So I know that there's a lot of talk around social justice and the plight of, I'm going to say, Black boys as opposed to Black men, just for the sake of the main character, Steve Harmon, and his age, and, being 17 years old.
Yeah, because they'll try to man a 17-year-old real quick.
Right.
To penalize him.
Especially correct.
I'm
correct.
like,
and that's
I'm
why
so
I'm making the
sorry, he's a
distinction.
boy.
Yes. yes. And you have to understand, as a reader, you have to understand that this is an adolescent boy, and or a teenage boy. And so what is he going through, or developmentally, biologically, how does his brain work? How does he look at a particular situation or dynamic? I think socially, if we're thinking about stereotypes and how Black males are perceived in society, and I know we're all aware of how difficult it is for them to be considered innocent until proven guilty. So it was, I think the film focused on that a lot. I think it focused on, society and society's opinions and perceptions. But when we read the book, as a teacher, I focused more on the main character, Steve, and then some of his friends. I focused more on the community and Steve's perception of the community, because again, I'm teaching to 8th graders.
Right.
So I want them to think about themselves. I don't want them to think about saving the world.
Society,
Yes, in the 8th grade.
Right.
And I think as adults, as teachers, as parents, as caretakers of children, and we all are, well, we all need to be. Let me make that clear.
Okay.
Right. How are the children? Right. Okay.
I don't know.
Yes.
I ain't home. No.
Right. When it is the tradition of the Maasai tribe to greet each other by asking that first. So how are the children? And they don't just mean yours. They mean in general,
right.
all of the children.
Deep. See, I didn't know that. The Maasai tribe, they greet you by asking how the children are.
Yes.
All right.
That is the formal greeting.
And, including the child in me. How is it? I don't know.
Correct. But how valiant is that to gauge how well you're doing as an individual or as a society or as a family, but to look at what you're nurturing or supposed to be nurturing. Right. Don't I see you cut your eyes?
Johnson family.
Right. Okay, let me get back on. And so Steve
that's
Harmon,
right. That's right.
Right.
The text is very valuable.
Yes. But okay, so a couple of things that I'll talk about a couple of things that the film does well, and then parallel it to what the book does well. So the film, the casting, of course, was excellent, because
ASAP Rocky. Who knew? I mean,
honey,
who knew?
Hi, ASAP.
You know what? Jail. She's going to jail.
No. But again, but you know what? That's exactly what you're saying is like such an important awakening. It's like, oh, who knew? We don't know. Right. That's part of the issue. And that's why I'm glad, even if the film was horrible, I would like the fact that it was bringing light to such a quality piece of writing that everyone should engage in. So even if it was bashed, like, oh, it was terrible, the book was so much better, great, because that would mean we would all run out and go read the book,
right,
to see if that was actually true.
Right.
But it needs to be, I think the film again does a good job at capturing the social injustice theme. I think it does a great job at capturing juvenile detention
Mm.
and
Mm.
the depths of that, and
Mhm.
the impact it has on the juvenile and their family. Um, and then I think it tries to encompass the entire story,
Mm.
so every facet of the legal system, the courtroom scenes, as well as trying to give us some idea of what people bring into those spaces without even knowing the individuals there. So, I felt like if people read the book before they saw the film, they would be able to appreciate that, you know,
Mhm.
the film does a good job at carrying
Mhm.
out what was intended
Mhm.
by the book.
Mhm.
Um, the book, though, girl,
Mm. Yeah.
um, it's a different experience when you read the
Okay.
book, because you're not taking on the task of figuring out how to change people's minds.
Mm.
Um, Engaging in the literature allows you to just be,
Mm.
um, and to be with Steve.
Mm.
And because the book is about Steve.
Okay.
It's about Steve. It's not
Mhm.
about um, police brutality. It's
Mhm.
not about how often young Black boys go to jail. And
Mhm. Mhm.
it's not about that as much as it is about who am I and what am I about.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, and then it goes a step further to make the main person questioning that a young Black male.
Yes.
And why
Yes.
would it not be a young Black male,
Right.
since they have to grow up in this society,
Right.
in this world, with these perceptions and so on. So I think that what the book does is it allows you to understand a human aspect before you get into, you know, uh, race, ethnicity,
Right.
socioeconomic status.
Right.
Um, the book allows you to just read and infer and enjoy a
Mhm.
good story without
Mhm.
getting caught up in, you know, too many other aspects, like
Mm.
heavy aspects that would
Right.
cloud your own judgment.
Right. Right. It's like, film has to. There's maybe one that I'm familiar with that stays small, like literature. Um, My Dinner with Andre,
Okay.
um, where it's just these two guys sitting at a cafe table talking.
Hmm.
But most films, but because of the weight of Wallace Shawn and uh, they were able to make that movie the way they want it. But most movies feel they have to, if they based on a book, they have to kind of open up the world and not be so in the main character's
Hmm.
head.
Hmm.
Um, and you can make whatever film you want, really. You don't have to
Correct.
succumb to that. Oh, we got to open this up a little bit. You can keep it small if you want.
Hmm.
But yeah, I can see just from the clips, because I didn't watch the whole film, but the clips of it I could see from a piece that was done in the theater, which stayed closest to the book,
Hmm.
and unfolded it differently than the film. And then you've got all that other stuff, the casting. Oh, Jennifer Hudson and ASAP
Right.
Rocky, whatever.
Right.
So, and the lead character, I forgot his name. The
Kelvin
Yes, 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 yes,
Anderson.
yeah. But he was really good. But
Hmm. Yeah.
so there are different things you can get from the film. But I appreciate what you're saying about how for your students and the book, they are staying focused on Steve
Yes.
and how does this how does this
Mm-hmm.
inform me as a young
Yes.
Black boy or girl or whatever. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And
cool.
boy or girl is important to remember, because
Right.
I think it's about the biggest idea that I could take away from Monster, the book,
Okay.
is
Right.
identity.
Okay.
So self identity and
Right.
identity in general, how you are
Okay.
identified.
Right.
Um, so and so much of the journal passages, Steve's journaling, so much of that is, his inner voice,
Mm.
and
Hmm.
how he feels or what he's struggling with internally, and so on and so forth. So I just think that the pleasure of reading the book and the benefit of reading the book is that self identity.
Hmm.
And well, how do I really feel? What do I really feel? That's why it's a young adult book.
Right. Right.
And not that us old adults
Right.
can't read
Oh,
it.
graying and things.
Right. But I do feel it is so important for young people to read it. And I think it's super important that us older folk don't mess it up for them.
Right. Right.
Just leave it.
Right.
Let them take away from it and
Right.
discuss what they've learned, or what it
Right.
has awakened in them.
Right.
And then if you want to teach it,
Right.
let's be careful.
Right.
If we want to teach it,
Right.
um, let's just remember that we're teaching very technical things.
Right.
Um, so if we want to teach them things about a screenplay, if we want to teach them things about free writing and journaling, if we want to teach them how to identify a theme, okay. Um, but don't teach them what to think about the theme. You can teach
Mm.
them how to identify it, but
Right.
don't teach them what to think about it,
Right.
because they have an innate ability to do that. We don't need to do
Right.
that,
It's
you know.
innate.
Right. And this is why people are always
Another.
talking about, oh, the teacher should be a facilitator and whatever.
Uh,
Um, but you have to know how to facilitate. You
right.
have to know how to step
Right.
back. You have to know how to step
Right.
in.
Right.
Um, and
And
like I
that's one of the. Got.
No, some lessons don't need to be taught. The children will
Mm.
teach themselves. But go ahead.
Mm. No, I was going to say that's one of the drawbacks of, or one of the differences of
Mhm.
film is the film gives you the point of view.
Right.
And so, and that's often why we are disappointed in
Hmm.
adaptations, because as I said in the previous video, when we're reading a book, we're creating the film in our head based on what is
Yeah.
speaking to us.
Yes.
But
Yes.
with a film, the filmmaker has made that decision,
Hmm.
and here's the film. And if it doesn't sort of harmonize with what we've envisioned, it we're not satisfied.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
so I like what you said about let them come
Yeah.
up with their take,
Yes.
um, instead of the film telling them what they
Right.
need to think
They
about
might
this.
surprise you.
Right,
They might come
right,
up with something better than what you thought.
right. That's right.
Whoa, okay.
Right,
Yeah. It's really, but you know what? If I want the students I teach to be able to make a film like that, well, then I have to
right,
release them. I have to let them be
right,
creative and think for
right,
themselves and so on and so forth.
right,
I'm there to build the capacity. I'm
right,
not there to tell you what to think,
right,
you know?
right,
So, you know, and again, I think part of the challenge of the adaptation is how much of the book can I tell? I
mm,
have to try to condense
right,
all of this
right,
into, an hour and a half or 2 hours.
right, right,
And that's tough,
right,
because if I'm just having a conversation about a book,
right.
that could be 2 hours.
That's right.
And we won't finish. You know what I mean? We could still not finish
That's right.
talking about everything in the book, any book. So but this one is one that's very close to me. I've taught it again for a lot of years, and every single time I teach it. You know, I love the discussion. I love how children are waiting for like the next scene, and they're like, oh,
Right.
you have to put it down now, you know.
Right.
You know you're telling a good story when when children don't want to put the book down. But again, that's like a good filmmaker. That's the goal of a good storyteller. That's the goal of a good teacher, because a teacher is a storyteller.
Right. Right.
And if you're not, then you're not teaching.
Right.
Because that means nobody's listening.
Right.
So
Right.
if
But
nobody's listening, you're not teaching.
and
So.
Carl Jung he wrote The Development of Personality, which is one of his collected works, volume 17.
Mm-hmm.
And he says the teacher is in many ways more important than the parents in the influence that the teacher has on the child's development. So
that's powerful.
that is, so we bow to you and to all your colleagues who deal with our people at that age, which is crucial. So we're going to take a beat and then come back for part 2 when we talk about for colored girls. So thank you for enriching us on Monster. And I think the film might have another title, Monster or All Rise.
All Rise.
If you All Rise, right? You might find it there. But I'll put links down below and whatever. So we will be back with part 2.